Alrighty. Welcome back to the podcast. Welcome back to Theory and Theology. So, I've been kind of geeking out on a lot of content about theories involving different cultures and like ancient cultures. Of course, I love that kind of stuff. And one person I came across who's popular, famous, but I wasn't turned on to them until pretty recently. His name is Graham Hancock. So I think he has 3 or more episodes where he's talking with Joe Rogan. I've only seen the most recent one, but I think that was 3 years ago, but I just recently listened to it during today and last night, and there's another episode, there are 2 more episodes where there are others there. It's not just him with Joe Rogan, it's someone else too, and I think those are from 5 years ago and 6 years ago, at least the upload dates of the ones that I saw on the podcast were that long ago. So, so basically he has so many books and like speeches and writing, and it fulfilled my soul to like hear some of the stuff he had to say. I was like more than happy to listen to it. So basically he talks about a lot of topics, but the ones that were of interest to me were the ones about ancient cultures and how there's some evidence from ancient times about different groups of people being around on Earth before what modern archaeology states. So basically, most people in history, anthropology, all those types of topics are generally taught, if you're from a religious perspective, usually like the Judeo-Christian religious perspective, the Earth is usually believed to be about 6,000 or so years old in some theories. And there's some older theories that talk about a lot of other stuff about the age of the Earth, but it turns out that through some of the more recent findings, even within the last like 10 years, maybe 20 years or so, I can't remember the exact timelines, but I want to say in like 10 years or so, the last 10 years or so, they found some potential proof for human involvement on Earth up to 150,000 years ago. So I believe, and I could be wrong because I was listening to a lot. It was like a 3-hour lecture, a 3-hour conversation I was listening to. So I believe the one that was found in San Diego was 130,000 years ago. Is that right? 130 or is it 30,000? I think it was 130,000. 130,000 years ago. So they were doing some construction in San Diego, and what they found were some bones. I don't know if it was a mammoth or what kind of animal, but there were some bones that they found while they were doing some road construction, where basically those bones had been cracked in a way that weren't like other animals eating the bones. It was like strategically like bones cracked for specific reasons. And one of the, I don't know if it was a bone or a tusk, was seen like sticking out of the, like it was stuck into the ground. So when they had excavated that site, let me just look this up. So when they had excavated that site, they found that. So let me see. Let me see. Let's see what happens if I look up 130,000 ancient human remains, San Diego. Mastodon. It was a mastodon. Yeah, so the first title that comes up is from San Diego Union Tribune.com. It says mastodon bones place humans in America 130,000 years ago. It says a trove of mastodon bones discovered decades ago at a Caltrans construction site in San Diego provides evidence that humans reached North America 130,000 years earlier than previously believed, according to a study published Wednesday in the Journal of Nature. And they say Wednesday, and this article was published April 26th of 2017. So whatever was the Wednesday before that date. And so, another site says prehistoric humans, perhaps Neanderthals, or another lost species occupied what is now California some 130,000 years ago, a team of scientists reported on Wednesday. The bold and fiercely disputed claim published in the journal, there's a journal called Nature, is based on a study of mastodon bones discovered near San Diego. So basically, the argument and premise is based on, finding bones that, yeah, you can find animal bones, right? But animals, don't really do certain things that humans might do, right? So say, for example, like all those types of sites that are all over, like those mounds and all these like pyramids and things like that, that's not something that like an animal would make, right? And so I think the argument with the mastodon bones is that because of how they were cut, it seems like it was more of a strategy of a human or a group of humans or some humans versus, say, like another animal that was attacking or eating, either killing or eating the remains of a mastodon. That would look different than what they found. They think that the bones were strategically cut open, whereas if there were other animals eating this animal, there's not like any other type of proof of animals doing that type of strategic interactions with bones of other animals. Like you could say maybe monkeys, but that would mean that they would need to know how to like cut through it. But yeah, so that's what they're using. So I don't think, and I'm not reading this whole article, so I could be wrong. There may have been things found since then. But I don't think they found any human remains at that site. I think it was only the remains of the mastodon bones. And so let's see. In the New York Times, so basically there's NewYorkTimes.com. So the article I'm going to look at right now, same topic, it says humans lived in North America 130,000 years ago. study claims. And so they have a picture, and it says in the caption, a side view of a groove produced by percussion on a mastodon leg bone. So if you think percussion, that's like if you think like percussive instruments, something that one thing hits another thing to make noise. So even like pianos are technically, they could be string or percussive, right? It's like there's basically the hammer that's hitting the string inside the piano, making the sound, or like drums and things like that. So basically there was some kind of hitting movement or striking movement that left certain types of grooves on this mastodon leg bone. So this article is by Carl Zimmer, and it's again April 26, 2017. So this is a different article than the one that I read a little bit about before. And it doesn't seem like it's that long, so I can read the whole thing. Ooh, maybe it is that long. It's long. Let me see. No, it's not. Okay. Yeah, it's a little lengthy. I'll read some of it. I'm not going to read the whole thing. It's a little lengthy. I'll post the link, though. How's that? Prehistoric humans, perhaps Neanderthals, or another lost species, occupied what is now California some 130,000 years ago, a team of scientists reported on Wednesday. Again, Wednesday before April 26th of 2017. So this article it's news at that time in 2017, based on the reports. And so when somebody's doing research and writing a report and releasing information, usually that means that the information was found beforehand, so that they would have the time to actually write the article and everything. Like, they would find the data and they would do a lot of research and use the data and research to write an article, get the article published, or maybe if it's pre-publication. So basically, I don't know when they found the information, but this is being published in 2017. The bold and fiercely disputed claim published in the Journal of Nature is based on a study of mastodon bones discovered near San Diego. If the scientists are right, they would significantly alter our understanding of how humans spread around the planet. So, okay, then they go into this theory, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, and I have a reason behind that, because I want to expand this into other episodes so that, I'm not doing my usual, like, hour 45 minutes or 2.5 hour long rant about a topic. So I want to get into the topic and then discuss a little bit more about what is showing up in these articles. So it says the earliest widely accepted evidence of people in the Americas is less than 15,000 years old. So, right, I mentioned before that, a lot of times in Judaism people say 6,000 years old. There are groups outside of that usually come from archaeology that say less than 15,000 years old. So there's a lot of stuff that they find as remains that tends to be like around the 13,000 years ago or 10,000 plus years ago. But usually once you start hitting that 15,000 years ago mark, it seems like there's some evidence that is maybe not being told to us or seems missing, or they try to discount it often and they say, oh, this isn't proof of humans, it's something else, or like whatever they say. But yeah, usually the argument is that 15,000 years ago or less is when people were in the Americas. Genetic studies strongly support the idea that those people were the ancestors of living Native Americans, or whatever you call those groups, those indigenous American groups, the tribes that were there, arriving in North America from Asia. Now, I'm going to stop reading there. I'm going to post this article. You can read it yourself. You can look into what Graham says. You can go into it on your own. So, some things I wanted to discuss when I was hearing about this was just in general, right? There's this whole theory about human existence that we all evolved in Africa, that we all started in that spot, and then there are these theories about how all the other groups got to the other places, right? And so one thing I've noticed seems to be that for some reason there's still this kind of belief that they want North America to not have been inhabited by humans for a very long period of time. I don't know where that comes from, but I've definitely noticed that. Like, for some reason, we're allowed to look at the Bible and look at all these other things and find stuff, you know, in Egypt, in the Middle East, in Africa, and we're comfortable a lot of times in mainstream, you know, human history, information, education. We're comfortable with, like, those groups having, like, a lot of ancient stuff. When it comes to North America, usually it's like, okay, there's a belief that there wasn't a population there until later on. So one question I would have is, what is the motive? What's the motive behind needing this theory to exist that North America was not inhabited? Because it seems like there's something underlying that. I like to look at what's underlying things, and I haven't talked to any of these people, so I don't really know. But one thing I started looking at, I think it was last night, that just like piqued my interest, and I don't really know a lot about it, but it piqued my interest. And you know when something piques your interest and then you keep seeing it all over? So there was something that piqued my interest where I started thinking about creation stories from around the world and how many of them I know. I don't know that many, but I started thinking about creation stories from around the world and the ones that I kind of know, even like a little bit. And then all of a sudden, you know, I was rewatching some older episodes, some older live episodes by Navajo Man and Lakota Bay. I was watching some of his content, some of that family's content. I like their content. It's very positive. It's very like family focused, positive. I love the relationship between the couple and how they have their house and their kids and their hobbies and their interests, and just, you know, there's like a spiritual aspect. You know, he did a type of smudging and a prayer, and oh my gosh, I had an unknown caller that disrupted my recording. So basically, I don't even remember what I was saying. I was watching Navajo Man and Lakota Bay, and they started mentioning something about creation stories. And that happens to me often. I'm sure it happens to other people, that when you start getting an interest in something and you start just like seeing it popping up all over the place. So, okay, we hear these theories a lot about these creation stories, right? I'm going to get into this later, some other episode, but I do kind of think that I kind of was playing with this idea that maybe a lot of the creation stories are real. Maybe it wasn't just every single body was, you know, created based on the biblical theories, and maybe it's not like that. Maybe it's not just every single person. Maybe maybe there's more to it. And I started thinking, you know, maybe maybe I maybe the theories, sorry, I'm turning on do not disturb. I don't know why I turned it off. I think I was expecting a phone call and I turned it off and never put it back. So okay, now I'm on do not disturb, thank God. Okay, so I think I was playing with this idea that maybe with the creation stories, maybe a lot of them are accurate. Maybe there were different creation stories where different people were placed in different places at different times, in different ways. All these origin stories, right? Usually people tend to focus on their own cultural line, and usually those stories assume that every single person was created by that version of an origin. But maybe there are more origins, you know, that humans were created and put in different places at different points in time. They were wiped out, and then something else created more of them. I don't know. I wasn't there. I wasn't there at creation. I don't think any of us were. So, I don't know, but it's an idea to play with. But I do kind of wonder if these history professionals trying to accept a new theory would cause problems, because a lot of times worldwide, a lot of these major powers come from the Judeo-Christian backgrounds, and they don't want to disturb that. They don't want to disturb in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. And they don't want to disturb that. They don't want to disturb that on the sixth day man was created. They don't want to disturb that. You know, that for some reason needs to stay as accurate as possible. And the more we start having all these other things coming out where it's like, okay, now the earth is older than we thought it was. Okay, now there were humans around longer than, you know, technically the religions would say humans had even existed. You know, some of these religions state that they're technically, according to how they do the mathematics and everything, there should not have been humans surviving at certain points, because of course, you know, if there's an origin and then people try to figure out, you know, when was that beginning time where that creation story began. And so the second you start saying, well, no, there were humans before that creation story, then it's like, wait, okay. And then the second you say, okay, now there's this land where there weren't supposed to be people there, especially certain races of people, right? Because if we're talking Africans, the people that they're stating were in the Americas were not Africans. Now, I don't really know the timeline off the top of my head for like Africa and how they state the origin of mankind in Africa, like when that's supposed to be. But say if it was supposed to be after the 130,000 years ago, that would create an issue to say that, hey, there were people in North America before you say that the first humans existed in Africa. That would be a problem, right? Because everything is based on that one belief that we all started in Africa. The Garden of Eden must have been somewhere in Africa, you know, all these kind of things. And then people spread out however it is that they spread out. Now, there's different theories about races that I don't really know. I'm gonna have to write these down. So I do want to talk about creation stories, origin stories. I want to talk about, I believe, I was talking to this guy at a temple that I used to attend on occasion, older gentleman who really liked these types of topics as well. And I kind of wish I would have been more open-minded at that time, because he was telling me a lot of different things about like ethnicities and races and different cultures and religions and stuff. And he seemed like he studied that type of stuff a lot. And I didn't really maybe buy into, or I hadn't studied things the way he did. Like, I kind of interpreted that the things he said were prejudice in a way. The reason why is because I initially started talking to him about Islam, and you know how I was saying like I love Muslim people, you know, and how the Quran doesn't say to kill Christians or whatever. And I think he said that the Quran does say that. And I was like, I don't think I remember ever reading that in there. But then again, when I was reading it, it was the first time reading it. I read through it quickly. I didn't go back and like study the details of things. So it's very possible that it might say that. I don't really know. I never looked it up. I don't really care to look it up. I don't want it to be true, honestly. So I didn't look it up. But when he said that, I kind of got like turned off to kind of listening to him. And so I didn't really listen to him too much, honestly. And then I kind of regret it now. I think I should have been more open-minded to what he was saying and kind of like not challenged him so much, but tried to have like conversations just so I could kind of get some of the information from him of what he had been reading and studying, because I don't really know. But basically, he's the one who introduced me to what's called, I don't know what it's actually called, but I think it's called like this theory about 5 races, that there are 5 races of people, 5 categories of races of people on the face of the planet, and every type of person can kind of fit into one of those. Now, that doesn't account for people who are like biracial or like, you know, have like strong like mixed genetics. Like, I have a friend who has like great grandparents, all the great grandparents on both sides of the family were from completely different countries. All the grandparents were from completely different countries. The parents were from completely different countries. So she's like the 4th generation of like German, Irish, you know, British, African, Panamanian, Spanish, like all these other groups of people, you know. And she identifies one way, but I mean, she has like all these different races of family members that are like directly connected to her. And so someone like that, I mean, what would you say that they are, you know? Like, if they've got like a lot of the categories, like they've got the Asian, the African, the Caucasian, they've got all these different categories. But yeah, but when we look at these theories, these racial type of theories, I need some water. When we look at these theories, that's basically what we see. is theories surrounding these beliefs that we need to kind of hold to. Like, if the theories about origins in Africa aren't an accurate timeline, if the Garden of Eden and Bible theory of the origins in Genesis aren't the right timeline, if the theories about how the races dispersed and started like traveling into other areas and having different ethnicities and identities throughout time, if if the migration patterns change, then it changes all of those things together change everything, right? And so, like, so my kind of right now, at least, my thought, man, apologies, I had a pre-workout earlier and I didn't hydrate properly because I was driving, and I think it's catching up to me now. Man, sorry. Okay, so if the theory surrounding people not originating in Africa at a certain time period and then dispersing all throughout the world, if that gets challenged and there were people actually in North America, that challenges the idea that, the whole idea of people coming from Asia across the Bering Strait during a time period where that was a landmass and it wasn't covered by anything, and people were able to walk across this region. And they were able to walk over that land strip, come into North America through, like, I guess it was like Alaska into Canada, and then coming down. Or the other theory, how, there's another thing that I heard about people coming up from South America, possibly along the coast, or things like that, and then coming in coastally through the Pacific and then going east. I mean, if there were already people there before that even started happening, if there had already been people there, then all those other theories, with like all the ethnic groups and how they got where they're getting, it kind of flips upside down. So I can tell you what I think, and I could be wrong. Anybody can challenge me on this, but I could be wrong. Because I don't know all these theories. I'm coming in a little bit green on some of this. So let me look up something real quick right before I start talking about this. I'm going to look up origins of human kind in Africa. Oops, I'm dropping my phone. Okay, so it says, according to science.org, modern humans arose in Africa at least 250,000 to 300,000 years ago, fossils and DNA reveal. But scientists have been unable to pinpoint a more specific homeland because the earliest Homo sapiens fossils are found across Africa, and ancient DNA from African fossils is scarce and not old enough. So that's interesting. So they're having trouble. Basically, they can't really directly pinpoint a spot. But yeah, 250,000 to 300,000 years ago is still longer than 130,000 years ago. Um, so, anyways, one thing that I think, this is a complete opinion based on what I've read, what I've heard, what I've listened to. Commonly in history theories, there are different minority groups that people want to say are, in a way, in quotes, less than, or not as intelligent as, or never had civilized or, advanced societies. Um, that tends to be a trend in science and history and a lot of like theoretical methods. Usually when we look at darker skinned people want to believe that, they have more of a primitive thinking and lifestyle. They're not as evolved or capable of more advanced thinking and intelligence. I don't believe this, obviously. I mean, I'm a black person. Of course, I don't believe this. But if you read history enough, you start seeing this kind of story reveal itself. Just, just skimming the surface. It kind of assumes that the white Caucasian person is superior than the non-white Caucasian individuals. I say white Caucasian because, even like Middle Eastern people are considered Caucasian in a lot of places. And so you can still be Caucasian and not really look like a white-skinned person. Now, I'm not trying to make some kind of weird, like, racial thing, or I'm not racist against white people. I'm not trying to say anything against them. I'm saying the scientists in general want to promote these ideas, and you see it around every single corner. So that seems to me to be one of the underlying ideas of the underlying reasons why they wouldn't really want for some of these theories to be true, that there were these super ancient people in these other areas of the world, because according to these theories, there weren't supposed to be civilizations, there weren't supposed to be tribes, there weren't supposed to be bands of people, clans of people, there weren't supposed to be humans existing and surviving in these regions, because they weren't considered, like, it doesn't match with that storyline of like that there could have been people of certain races that were very advanced. And I don't know, I'm kind of playing with the idea, but that's kind of what it seems like. Because I wonder why else would they want to try so hard to refute a lot of the newer theories. Graham Hancock mentions something interesting when he says, what did he say? He said something about he said, I can't remember. Sorry, my brain is like, I'm wiped, guys. I've been up since like 6 in the morning. Yeah. He said a lot of things, but let me see if I wrote it in any of my notes. Okay, yeah. So regarding the people in, like the Mayan culture, the Aztec culture, I think it's called Olmec, that was before them, in like the Mexico area, I believe. Um, he said that there was, now I don't know this in detail, but there was some type of a European person who had made it over there before the Spanish started coming over and like Columbus and all these things. Before all of that, someone had come to the region and had reports of all these like advanced people, advanced civilization, architecture, culture, traditions, all these things, agriculture, all this type of stuff. And then they said later on that somebody thought he wasn't right because there was no evidence of that later. And Graham was stating that, you know, within a 50-year period of, I might be mixing this up with something else, so I'm trying to get it right, but within a 50-year period of this, of that report being made, once the Spanish came over, because of all the diseases, so much was wiped out within a 50-year period of time that when all the other people started coming and looking for what this guy had said, within that 50 years, after the people getting wiped out by disease and likely other things, as well as, you know, the jungles and, you know, everything overtaking the land, there was no more proof of these civilizations that were advanced in that area. And I think they're called, I think Olmec, I think. So you can tell when I'm not very well versed in a topic. You can tell when I'm learning something versus when I've studied it for like decades, right? When I start talking about the Bible, I know a lot of that stuff like the back of my hand. And if I don't, it's like reviewing. But, you know, when it comes to this other stuff, I'm like, what is this? You know? So they say, like when they look at the Olmec heads with the stone representations, with the helmets and things, they say Olmec civilization of ancient Mesoamerica, the date from 900 BC. And the facial features is something else that they note, with the kind of flat, wide noses and the thicker lips. That, you know, not every group of people looks like that, and so they were trying to describe, you know, potentially they think it could have been maybe Africans, maybe not, maybe Polynesians, maybe not, maybe what they refer to as of Native Americans, maybe not, and I don't think there's a description about what the helmets are either. But just looking at those facial features, a lot of those facial features are very distinct. And I do wonder what the helmets are. But they're really cool to look at. Like, I'm just like, you know, looking at all this stuff makes me just want to get out in the world and go see some of this stuff. Especially considering how fast it disappears. At least now, some stuff is getting preserved more and more often. But, you know, I feel like a lot of this stuff might disappear. And especially when there starts to be like these controversial theories, you know, about what they are, like who was there and all these things, when there's all these controversial theories that come out. Um, it's, you know, sometimes things get destroyed in that process. And so, you know, just because people don't want that, you know, they don't want that information. So they have some other, I'm just looking at these pictures. They have some Olmec girl head pictures. I don't know if they have helmets or braids or what those are. But this stuff is just fascinating to look at. Some of those heads are gigantic. Like they're like 2 or 3 times larger than a human being, like taller, and they're really wide. I don't know. So basically, I don't want to go too lengthy on all this, but I don't know. I feel like there is usually an underlying reason why some of these theories don't get acknowledged as something to consider. And, you know, Graham Hancock says, this will be my last point, he says something interesting when he states that archaeology isn't a science. And so he says that instead of it being a science, usually what happens is people kind of stumble upon something randomly. A lot of times that's what happens, you know, like maybe there's a theory about something being somewhere and people go digging looking for it, or, you know, they go the other route and it comes through construction or something like that. Like there's road construction and oh look, they found the thing in San Diego, you know. So there might be that kind of situation where there's construction, something reveals itself, and then people start making, you know, educated, you know, claims about what it is, where it's from, who it's from, how long ago it's from, usually based on what they already know. So usually, he says usually that's kind of how archaeology works, that it's based on not the scientific method, but based not by the scientific method. Like a lot of these theories don't come out of using a scientific method, which makes it a little challenging, but or a lot challenging. But yeah, I really like these topics. I've got plenty more I want to record about, but I'm not too sure yet. So, alright, for now, that's going to be it. Thanks for listening.